Do. We're gonna write short stories today.
Ha cha cha.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the last event of our special 4th anniversary DabbleU campus celebration week.
Oh, I should have brought a birthday cake.
Dang it, Abby. I was depending on you.
Where'd my headbands go? I should have brought a birthday cake.
I love how you had to grab a headband because your hair was just out of control.
It just flew off my head. You didn't see it fly. I mean, my headband was so excited. It like jumped for joy.
Like, let's go.
Stories.
Oh man, how is everybody today? I have a lot going on my screen, so I have the comments panel closed just for more screen real estate. And so Abby is here with me, and she's gonna kind of keep the party going in the chat because I can't see it right now. And if I pop it open, I'm gonna see something that's gonna get me excited and it's gonna get me off track. And because I know me.
Do you want to take questions as you go along, or do you want to hold them until the end?
Yeah.
Well, which one?
I don't care. If a good question comes up in the midst, let's take it.
Okay, what I'm going to do is if you are like mid-sentence, I'm not even going to interrupt you. I'm just going to pop that puppy up on the screen. Will you see it when it pops up on the screen?
Perfect. Yes.
All right, then.
I think so. Yeah.
Perfect.
So who's excited to talk about short stories today? If you have been around me at all for any amount of time, you know that I love short stories. And I love them for what you can do with them and what they can do for you. But I love the art form in general. And we're going to talk a little bit about how
you're missing the first question, Hank. Then why don't you marry him? You love him so much. Why don't you marry him?
True.
Aren't you glad you invited me today?
So far. No. I love short stories. I love to read short stories. I didn't always hold that opinion. I felt like a lot of people probably feel that short stories are not as good as a novel. It's not the same experience. I'm a novel reader. I like to get into a novel and disappear for a couple of weeks, and if you think of short stories in that way, you're expecting to be disappointed, but short stories do something different than novels do. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Yes, ma'am.
Question as I put it up, because this is probably a good spot to cover it.
Okay.
How is a short story different from flash fiction?
Apart from word count, doesn't differ that much. And we're going to talk about this later in the presentation. But short stories differ from novels in very specific ways. And I feel like flash fiction leans more toward the short story. Well, it definitely leans more toward the short story side. But the thing that short stories do that novels don't do, flash fiction does even more. And we'll talk about that in a minute. But and if there are still questions about at the end, we can talk about it. But for those of you that don't know, my name is Hank Garner. I work here, Dabble Writer. Spent most of my adult life doing two things: telling stories and helping other people tell their stories. I've written novels. I've written novellas. I've hosted more podcasts and written more blog posts than I can count. But the form I come back to, the one that has taught me the most about writing, is the short story. Today, I want to change your mind about the short story. A lot of writers treat it as a warm-up lap, something you do before you earn the right to write a novel. And I'm here to tell you that that's backwards. The short story is not practice for writing a novel. It's not a demo version of real fiction. It's the thing itself. And for working writers in 2026, it might be the most valuable tool you have. By the time we leave today, I want you walking out with three things. I want you to know why short stories matter. I want you to know how they work. And I want you to have a concrete plan to write one before the end of next week. Hold on one second. I've got to adjust my screen. Just a second. So, what we're going to cover today, and my window placement is just not cooperating. So, bear with me just a second. I've got to be able to change slides. Okay. So, what we're going to cover today, here's the roadmap. We've got 4 blocks that we're going to cover. Block 1 is why short stories are powerful. This is the why. Block 2, short stories as author marketing. This is the strategy. Block 3 is how to structure a short story. This is the practice. And then block 4 is from idea to completed story. This is the practice. We will close with a short wrap up and a challenge I want each of you to take home. Why short stories are powerful. Compression is the advantage. Lori Moore said, a short story is a love affair and a novel is a marriage. I love that quote because a love affair is intense. Every moment matters. You remember every detail, the light in the room, the first thing she said, the song that was playing. A marriage is different. A marriage has slow Tuesdays and arguments about the dishwasher. A marriage has long stretches of just showing up. Both are good, but they are not the same form. That's what compression does to a short story. A novel can afford to wander. A short story cannot. Every word has to earn its place on the page. Every sentence has to push the story forward or deepen the character or pay off later. There's no fat. There's no filler. If it's not working, it has to go. And here's the thing nobody talks about. Readers finish short stories. That's not a small thing. That is everything. A novel takes 2 weeks to read, assuming the reader does not put it down on page 70 and then forget all about it. A short story takes 20 minutes, up to an hour if it's a long short story, but it can be consumed in one sitting. The emotional payload lands while the reader is still sitting in the same chair. That's rare. That's precious. And sometimes the 20-minute story sits with you longer than the 2-week book. I'm going to say that again. Sometimes the short story sits with you, lingers, lives rent-free in your mind longer than a novel does. Think about the last short story that punched you in the chest. I bet you can name it. Now try to name the last novel that hit you the same way. That's harder to do, right? Not because novels don't hit hard. They do. But because the short story hits clean, one shot, no waste. That's the advantage. That's the reason to take this form seriously. Excuse me. I have a cough drop in my mouth because I know my voice is going to get weak. So bear with me, folks. What short stories can do that novels cannot do? 4 things I want you to see here. These are not academic. These are practical. Each one of these will change how you work. First, you can experiment freely. You want to try a voice that you've never used? Try it out. You want to write horror and you usually write romance? Write it. You want to write in second person? God forbid, who would want to do that? But if you want to, go ahead. 3,000 words is cheap. 90,000 is not. That's an investment. If a novel experiment does not work, you just lost a year. And I think I've been there. I bet some of you have been as well. If a short story experiment doesn't work, you lost a weekend. That asymmetry is your friend. It lets you take swings that you would never take in a novel. Some of the best writers in history use short fiction exactly this way. Raymond Carver wrote the same scene in 3 different forms before he found the one that worked. He could only do that because the form is small enough to try again. Second, you can capture a single moment, not an arc that spans months or years. One turning point, one decision, one conversation that changes everything. Raymond Carver had a story called Cathedral. The whole thing takes place in one living room between three people in under an hour of story time. Nothing much happens. A blind man asks a sighted man to draw a cathedral with him. And at the end of that one scene, one of those men has changed forever. That is what a short story can do that a novel cannot. A novel has to track the whole river. A short story picks one stone and polishes it until it shines. The third is the hit lands faster. There's no warm up, no preamble, no table setting chapter where you introduce the protagonist and her quirky roommate. A good short story is inside the reader from the first line. The first sentence is already the story. That forces you, as the writer, to start in the right place, which is almost never where you think it is. Most first drafts start 2 pages too early. The short story form will train you out of that habit faster than any craft book will. And fourth, they put your name in front of new readers. Anthologies, magazines, free reads on your website. Short fiction travels in ways novels do not. A literary journal publishes 20 stories a year. That's 20 new audiences, 20 new names, 20 new on-ramps into your work. A novel has one shot. A short story can be read and shared and passed around. It's the business card of fiction writers. Let me add one more thing before we move on. A lot of great writers made their home in short fiction. Flannery O'Connor, Raymond Carver, Alice Munro, who won the Nobel for short stories, George Saunders, Ernest Hemingway, Shirley Jackson, Ted Chiang, whose work became the movie Arrival. These are not fallback writers. These are titans. The short story was not their training ground. It was their art form. If it's good enough for them, it's good enough for you. Now, short stories as author marketing. Now, I know the word marketing makes some of you flinch. Some of you came here to talk about craft, and I just said a dirty word, but stay with me. Marketing is not manipulation. Marketing is not tricks. Marketing, at its best, is just connecting your work with the people who need it. That's it. You wrote something, somebody out there needs to read it. Your job is to help them find each other. And short stories are one of the best tools you have for doing that. This next section is about strategy, not craft, but we'll get to craft. But if you skip this part, you're going to write beautiful stories and no one will ever read them. So let us talk about how to actually put these things to work. Everybody doing good so far? We're tracking? Okay. 5 ways short stories work for you. 5 uses. I want you to think about which ones fit your situation. Not all 5 will be right for every writer. Pick the 1 or 2 that serve where you are today. The first one is reader magnets. You write a short story, you give it away for free. In exchange, you ask for an email address. That person just raised their hand and said, I like your writing. That's the beginning of a real relationship. It's not a sale. It's not a transaction. It's a conversation that's just starting. And if you show up consistently, if you write something worth reading in the follow-up emails, that relationship turns into readers who buy every book you ever write. Indie authors have built entire careers on this. I'm not exaggerating. I know writers who made their first 6 figures starting with 1 free short story and an email list. The next thing is series origin stories. Say you're launching a new novel in October. In August, you release a short story set in the same world. Maybe it's about a minor character from the novel. Maybe it's a scene that happened 5 years before the book opens. Maybe it's the villain's backstory told in his own voice. It introduces the voice. It establishes the tone. It gives readers a reason to care before the book is out. When the book launches, they're already invested. They already know your world. That's a launch with momentum instead of a launch with crickets. The next one, anthologies. And this is a personal favorite of mine because I really started my writing with anthologies. I'd published a couple of books, but anthologies are where I really kind of honed my craft and made a lot of connections and things like that. Um, Anthologies, you team up with 5, 10, 15 other authors in your genre. Each one of you writes a story. Each one of you promotes the collection. Now your name is in front of every audience those other authors have. If you're just starting out and you partner with an author who has 10,000 mailing list subscribers, you just got exposed to 10,000 potential readers without spending a dime on ads. Anthologies are one of the most underrated growth strategies in indie publishing. Seek them out. Join Facebook groups in your genre. When someone posts a call for an anthology, submit. The worst that happens is a no. Side point, I've written stories for a number of anthologies, 10 or 12. A couple of those were included in a project called the Lunar Codex, where a whole bunch of different art, books, paintings, music were digitized and sent to the moon in a time capsule sort of thing, where, you know, one day when our alien overlords come in, they'll see that and they can be exposed to art of you know, planet Earth. And I've got 3 stories that live on the moon now, which, you know, in the grand scheme of things doesn't really mean anything, but it's kind of a fun bragging right, you know, that
I think it's super cool. And you know what? We have, since the year and 4 months that I've been at Dabble, we have had multiple anthologies put together by community members.
Yes.
So it's really fun. And that's something I would love to see somebody do again. If anybody wants to jump in and put it together. I believe actually David is part of an ongoing one as well, where they do one every season. So
I love it. I have been all of the anthologies I've been a member of have been topic anthologies where the curator says we're gonna. One of the most fun that I had was one called Tales of Tinfoil, and it was like write a short story about your favorite conspiracy theory, and mine was how the moon landing was faked in 1967. And
please tell me that's what ended up on the moon.
Oh yeah, it is. It's one of the. It's on the moon. You know, it was hilarious. But I've done a couple of anthologies that were based around pets. And I was able to write a magical realism story set in my fictional town of Weston, Mississippi. You know, it has a pet in it. And then I did another one that's a post-apocalyptic story about a kid who is on the autism spectrum, non-vocal, non-communicative, but they have a connection with this dog, and they're making it through, you know, a post-apocalyptic story. You know, so a lot of times you can find a theme and just find some way to resonate with that topic. The next reason is serialization. Substack, your blog, Kindle Vella, Patreon, a new chapter or a new story every week. It gives people a reason to come back. It turns readers into a reoccurring audience. Charles Dickens serialized his novels in newspapers. Andy Weir originally published The Martian as a serial on his website that he gave away for free and only published on Kindle because he got tired of answering questions for people on how they could get the story on their Kindle. He launched his publishing career because he was tired of answering emails. Project Hail Mary, a follow-up book to not a follow-up to The Martian, just another book he wrote, is one of the biggest movies in the world right now, all because Andy was serializing stories on his website just for fun. Neither of them was doing anything new. You can do the same thing today with less overhead than Dickens had. And here's something most writers miss. Serialization trains you in pacing. When you have to end every installment in a way that makes the reader come back next week, you learn in your bones how to build and release tension. That skill transfers to every novel you ever write. Idea testing. Before you spend a year on a novel, write a short story in that world. See if the concept has legs. See if the voice works. See if you actually enjoy spending time with this character. 3,000 words will tell you what 80,000 would have taught you the hard way. Stephen King has done this. Ted Chiang does it constantly. His novella, Story of Your Life, which became the movie Arrival, started as an idea he tested in short form before he committed to it. If it's good enough for him, it's good enough for you. One note before we move on, don't let the marketing drive the art. The art comes first. The strategy is a servant, not a master. If you find yourself writing a story because it serves a funnel and not because it's a story you need to tell, stop. Go back. Find the story. Then figure out how to use it. Good fiction is not a lead magnet wearing a trench coat. Good fiction is good fiction. The marketing works precisely because the writing is real. Never get those mixed up. The reader magnet. Let me walk you through how this actually works step by step, because I can tell you the theory all day, but until you see the mechanics, it won't click. Step one, someone discovers your free story, maybe through a book funnel promotion where other authors in your genre cross promote, maybe through your website, maybe a friend shared it on social media, maybe a reader loved your novel, went looking for more. The point is the story gets in front of a stranger. Step two is they give you their email address to get the story. That's not a trade. The story's free, but attention is not. That exchange matters. They now have opted in. They have said, send me more. That tiny act of trust is the foundation of everything that follows. Step three, your welcome email sequence kicks in. This is where most writers drop the ball. They send one email with the story attached and then disappear for 6 months. Don't do that. Set up a sequence. Email 1, here's your story. Thanks for signing up. Email 2, 3 days later, the story behind the story, why you wrote it. Email 3, a week later, a favorite scene from a longer work, a preview, a glimpse. Email 4, 2 weeks later, a question or a prompt to reply. You're warming up the relationship. You're earning their trust. You're becoming a real person to them, not just a name on a file. Step 4, when your novel comes out, your list is already warm. They know your voice. They trust you. They've been reading your emails for months. You're not asking a stranger to buy a book. You're telling a friend about your new work. The conversion rate on that is not 3%, which is the industry average for cold traffic. It's often 20, 30, sometimes 50%. That's the power of a well-built list. Now, quick caveat. This takes time. You're not going to set up a funnel on Tuesday and make a mortgage payment on Friday. This is a year-over-year strategy. But if you play the long game, if you write one good story a year, or even better, one per quarter, and keep building the list, you end up with something most writers never have, and that's an audience, a real one that will still be there 10 books from now, and one you can carry with you when Amazon eventually goes away and we all have to rethink this author marketing strategy. So anyway, that's marketing. That's kind of how you can use these stories as ways to promote yourself. Now we're going to talk about how to structure a short story. This is where we shift from why to how. This is where we get our hands dirty. The first half of this, we talked about why short stories matter. Everything from here on out is about craft, how to actually build one. I want you to think of structure as a container, not a cage. The rules I'm about to give you are not rules the way do not split infinitives is a rule. They're rules the way do not stick your hand in boiling water is a rule. They describe reality, they describe what works. You can break them, writers break them all the time, but you have to know what you're breaking and why. So let's start with the essentials. The essential elements. Every short story needs three things. That's it. Three. You have to have a character who wants something. You have to have a conflict that blocks them. And then the most important, you must have a change by the end. I want to spend a minute on each one because people nod at these and then they go home and write stories that miss all three. The number one, you have to have a character who wants something, not a vague longing, not a general feeling of discontent, a specific, nameable desire. She wants to find her grandmother's ring before the estate sale, or he wants to tell his son the truth before the surgery, or she wants to make it to the funeral home before they close the casket. The more specific the want, the more the reader cares. Think about that. Specificity is what generates emotion in fiction, not grand themes, not beautiful sentences, the specific want. Because when the want is specific, the reader can feel it. When the want is vague, the reader drifts. You need to be able to put your finger on it. Kurt Vonnegut said every character should want something, even if it is only a glass of water. That is not a throwaway line. That's the whole rule. Give your character a glass of water to want. Now you have a story. And while you're here, let me name a distinction that will save you a lot of trouble. There is what a character wants, and there's what a character needs. These are often two different things. She wants to find the ring. She needs to forgive her grandmother. She wants to make it to the funeral. She needs to say goodbye. The external want drives the plot. The internal need drives the meaning. The best short stories braid them together so the reader feels them both at once. Then you need a conflict that blocks them. Something has to stand in the way. It must. The want has to hit a wall. It can be external. Maybe it's a locked door, a rival, a deadline, a storm, a phone that will not ring. Or it can be internal, fear, shame, a lie the character has been telling herself for 20 years, a memory she cannot face. In the best short stories, it's usually both. The external obstacle reveals the internal one. The locked door is not just a locked door. It's the door to the room where her father died, and she's not been able to turn the knob in 15 years. Now the external conflict is carrying the internal one. That's when a short story starts to get deep. Without conflict, you do not have a story. You have a character sketch, a mood piece, a painting, all respectable things, but they're not a short story. A story requires friction. If your first draft feels flat, check the conflict. 9 times out of 10, you've not put enough in your character's way. And then the third thing that you must have is a change by the end. The character gets what they want, or they do not, or they discover they were chasing the wrong thing entirely, which is a powerful motif. But something is different at the end than at the beginning. Something has shifted. The change does not have to be big. In fact, in short fiction, it usually should not be. A short story is not a hero's journey across 3 volumes. A short story is a small hinge on which a life turns. It's a realization, a decision, a door that closes, a name that gets said out loud for the first time. But the change has to be real. The reader has to feel the turn. And here is a test. If you can describe the change in one sentence, you have a story. If you cannot, you have material. These are the three essentials: want, obstacle, and change. If you can name those three things in your story, you have a story. If you cannot, you have raw material, which is fine, but it just means you're not done yet. Three structures that work. There are 100 ways to structure a story. I'm going to give you three that work almost every time. The first one is linear, beginning, middle, and end. The character moves forward through time. This is the simplest. It's often the most powerful. Do not underestimate it. Hemingway's Hills Like White Elephants is a linear story. A man and a woman sit at a train station and talk. The whole story is in real time. Nothing but a conversation, a couple of beers, and a landscape, and it breaks your heart. 90% of the time, linear is the right answer. It lets the reader move with the character. It builds tension naturally. It does not require fancy footwork from you as a writer. The second is the bookend or frame story. A narrator looks back on something that happened. The story opens in the present, dips into the past, and returns. This is great when reflection is the point, when the meaning of the event has changed over time, when the story is not just what happened, but what the narrator now understands about what happened. A lot of O. Henry stories work this way. A lot of my own Weston stories work this way. I love a framing story. An epistolatory story works really well for this. The narrator sitting in a bar telling the story of someone who just walked in. The framing device gives you a reason for the telling. It gives the reader someone to listen through. Done well, it creates intimacy. Done poorly, it creates distance. The test is whether the frame earns its place. If the story is just as strong without it, cut the frame. And then we've got in medias res, which is Latin for in the middle of things. You start in the middle of the action. The reader hits the ground running. You fill in context as you go. This hooks people immediately, but you have to be deliberate about when and how you deliver the backstory. Too early and you kill momentum. Too late and the reader's lost. Flannery O'Connor was a master at this. A good man is hard to find, does not waste a sentence on setup. You're already in the car with the family, already feeling the friction before you know what year it is. She trusted her readers to catch up. Pick the structure that serves the story. Don't force it. If you do not know which structure to use, start linear. Only move to frame or in medias res if there is a specific reason. Reflection over time. An opening action you cannot live without. A narrator whose voice needs to surround the story. Let me name one more thing. Structure is not the same as plot. Structure is the architecture. Plot is what happens inside the architecture. You can have a linear structure with a wild plot or a calm plot. You can have a frame story about the biggest event of a life or the smallest. Do not confuse the container with the elements in the container. The one thing changes principle. If you remember one thing from this seminar, remember this one. This is the single most important idea in the whole hour. A novel can change everything. The world, the character, the stakes, the entire moral order of the story. That's part of what novels do. They give you space to change many things, even the entire world. A short story changes one thing, and that one thing changes everything. Pick one character, give them one desire, put one obstacle in the way, and then when that one thing resolves, the story's over. That sounds limiting, but it is not. It's liberating, because once you know the one thing, You know what stays in the story and what has to come out. You know where to start and where to stop. You know what each scene is doing. Everything serves the one thing. Everything else is noise. The change can be tiny, a realization, a decision, a word that gets said or does not get said, the door to her father's room that finally opens, the phone that finally gets answered, the apology that finally lands, the lie she finally tells herself is a lie. But it has to be real. The reader has to feel it. Here's the test. If you cannot name the one thing that changes in your story, you do not have a story yet. Write it down. In this story, blank changes. Fill in the blank. If you cannot fill it in, go back to the napkin, find the change, then write the story. This one test will save you more time than any writing book you will ever read. I promise. Abby, you often talk about the idea of I'm drawing about constriction, putting limits on your creativity, and how that is actually makes you more creative than just having wide open spaces.
Yep, the blank page. Whoo.
Right.
But once you narrow down your idea, suddenly you have more options.
Right.
When it was just a blank page because you have a direction.
That's right. That's right. Okay, word count targets by market. Quick reference here. Different links serve different purposes. Flash fiction is typically under 1,000 words. Perfect for contest, warm-ups, pieces that are all voice and moment. A lot of great literary journals run flash fiction or flash only sections. It's a great way to break in. And to kind of touch on our question from earlier, the difference in flash and short, flash fiction is usually all about voice, and there's very little, if none, world building. It's all about the character voice. Whereas a short story gives you a little more room to give the reader a glimpse of kind of what's going on and bring in other characters. Flash fiction, the way I understand it, I've not written a lot of flash fiction, so I'm not an expert here. But if short stories give you a narrow view of a specific thing, flash is even narrower down to a lot of times even internal thoughts. And so that's how I understand it. And then you got shorts. They are 1,000 to 3,000 words. This is your reader magnet sweet spot. Long enough to feel like a real story, short enough that a reader will finish it in one sitting. And then you've got the classic short story, 3,000 to 7,000 words. This is where I love to, my favorite short stories I've written come in between 5 and 10,000 words. I love that sweet spot. It's room enough to really kind of build in, what this character, who he is, who she is, the world they live in, without just going off the rails. But this is where I'm very comfortable writing. This is what most magazines and anthologies want. If you're going to write short fiction regularly, this is the range you'll probably write in most. All of the anthologies that I have submitted stories to want stories in the 5 to 10,000 range. Typically, 7,500 is a sweet spot where most people land when you put those constraints on.
Just to put it in perspective, in case you need help doing the math fast, 5,000 words is about 20 pages. So
yes,
to kind of give you
right. And then you've got long short stories, 7,000 to 10,000 words, a little more breathing room, can handle more characters, a slightly bigger arc, good for more ambitious work. And then you've got the novelette, which is 10 to 20,000, starting to feel novel adjacent. It's great for serialization and companion pieces to a series. Then you've got the novella, 20 to 40,000, almost a novel, Some of the best fiction ever written lives in the novella range. Stephen King's The Body, which became the movie Stand By Me, Steinbeck's Of Mice and Men were both novellas. Incredible works, will go down in history, and they fell in that range. Two things to notice. One, these are not rules, they're conventions. But the conventions matter because markets and readers have expectations. Number two, the length you write in will change the rest of your decisions. Flash fiction cannot support subplots. A novella can. Pick your length first or discover it as you go, but know where you are. Okay. From idea to completed story. Everything I've said so far has been theory. Now we get to practice. This is the block where I want you to write in your head along with me. By the end of it, you should be able to sit down tonight and start a story. Not start thinking about a story, start writing one. Next thing we're going to talk about is finding your seed. Every short story starts as one small thing. Not a plot, not an outline, just a seed. A tiny, insistent something that will not leave you alone. It might be an image. A man standing in a flooded field at dawn. The water up to his knees, holding a bird cage. Why is he holding a bird cage? A woman holding a letter she cannot bring herself to open. An empty chair at a Thanksgiving table with a place still set. You don't know the story yet, but the image will not leave you alone. That's the sign. That's the seed. It might be a question. What would happen if you could hear what your dog was thinking? What if forgiveness had a deadline? What if the man who took care of you as a child was not who you thought he was? Provocative questions. Or it might be a what if. What if the stranger who moves to town is not running from something, but running toward it? What if the funeral is not for who you think it's for? What if the prayer was answered, but by someone else? The seed does not have to be clever. It does have to be marketable. It has to be specific. It doesn't have to be marketable, excuse me. It has to be specific. Specific is what makes it yours. Here's a practice I recommend. Keep a seed file, a note in your Dabble project or a physical notebook. Anytime an image, question, or what if catches you, write it down. One sentence. Don't elaborate, just capture it. Then when it's time to write, go to the file and see which seed still has heat. The ones that still feel alive 3 weeks later are the ones worth planting. The ones that feel dead, let them go or come visit it another time. Maybe you'll be ready to write it. They serve their purpose just by showing up. And do not throw away seeds that feel too small. Many of the best short stories in the world started as something smaller than you would believe. Flannery O'Connor said, "A good man is hard to find." Started as a single image. A grandmother in a ditch. That was it. Nothing else. She built the whole story outward from that ditch. Trust the small thing. Now, we're going to talk about the napkin outline. 4 questions. That's all you need to plan a short story. You could literally write these on a napkin. I have done it more than once on an actual napkin. Can be done. Question number 1. Who is your character? Not a full biography, not a character sheet from a D&D game. 3 things. You need a name, 1 defining trait, 1 specific moment in time. That's enough. The rest will emerge as you write. Example: Margaret, a retired church organist, the morning after her husband's funeral. You don't need to know her entire life. You need just enough to sit down with her on the first page. Question number 2, what does Margaret want? Not a vague feeling, a concrete, specific desire. She wants to find the note her husband hid in her hymnal 40 years ago. She wants to play the organ at his funeral, but they told her no. She wants to make it to the hospital before visiting hours ends. She wants to say the things she has been holding back for 20 years, and she wants to say it today. The more specific the want, the stronger the story will be. I know I'm saying this again. I'm saying it again because it's the most commonly missed rule. The more specific the want, the stronger your story will be. Question number 3 you need to write down: the obstacle. A flat tire, a locked door, her own grief, her own pride, her son who does not want to hear it, her voice that would not work when she opens her mouth. The obstacle does not have to be dramatic. It has to feel real, and it has to be something the reader can see or feel in a scene. Abstract obstacles rarely work. Make it concrete. Make it specific. Question number 4, what does it cost? What does she gain or lose by the end? What's different? This is the change, and you have to know this before you start. Not in detail, not with every beat plotted, but you have to know the direction. Is she moving toward the note or away from it? Does she say the thing or not? What's on the other side of the door when it opens? If you don't know the answer to all 4 questions, sit with the seed a little longer. Don't start writing yet. A lot of failed short stories are failed because the writer skipped the napkin. If you have all 4 answers, you're ready. Even if the answers are wrong, you can always revise. The point is, you have enough to start. Now, writing the messy first draft. Now we write. And this is where most writers get stuck. Let me give you 4 rules to get unstuck. Start where the trouble starts. Don't give me 2 paragraphs of the character waking up. Don't describe the weather. Don't describe her outfit. Drop the reader into the moment the character's world tilts. The first sentence should already be the story. If it's not, you started too early. Kurt Vonnegut again said, start as close to the end as possible. Write that on a sticky note and put it on your monitor. It will change your openings. Write fast, fix it later. I'm a big proponent of this. The first draft is for discovering the story. You're not carving marble. You're not digging in the dirt trying to find the bones. Give yourself permission to be wrong, permission to be bad, permission to stop in the middle of a sentence and write in all caps, figure this out later, and keep going. The only rule in the first draft is keep moving. The momentum is more valuable than the polish. You can polish a bad paragraph. You cannot polish a blank page. Anne Lamott calls this the down draft. You just get it down. Later, you write the up draft, which is where you fix it up. Later still, you write the dental draft where you check every tooth. But first, you get it down. Stay in one point of view. This is crucial. Short stories do not have room for head hopping. Pick one pair of eyes and stay there. Let the reader see the whole world through that one character. The discipline of a single POV is part of what makes short fiction powerful. It creates intimacy. It creates focus. Break this rule and you will almost always weaken the story. First person, third person limited, either one works. Pick your lens. Do not flinch. And then end where the change lands. You don't need an epilogue. You don't need a wrap-up paragraph. You don't need the character to reflect on what she just learned. The moment the change happens, the story is over. Stop writing. Most first drafts of short stories end 1 or 2 paragraphs too late. When you revise, look at the last 3 paragraphs and ask, is the story already over? If it is, cut them. One more thing. When you hit the middle and you think the story's not working, keep going. This is normal. This is the middle. Every writer I know thinks every story is a disaster when they're halfway through. Push through to the end, then assess. Do not judge from inside the fog. All right. And then revision. Cut, compress, sharpen. Now the real work begins. We've got a first draft. If that was about finding the story, the revision is about finding the best version of the story. 3 moves: cut, compress, sharpen. The first is cut. This is the hardest. You have to be ruthless. Kill the scenes that do not serve the one change. Kill the characters who do not earn their place. Kill the dialogue that repeats what the reader already knows. If a scene does not push the story toward the change, it's dead weight, no matter how much you love the writing, especially if you love the writing. Stephen King has a line for this: kill your darlings even when it breaks your egocentric little scribbler's heart. He borrowed the phrase. It's been around a long time. The reason it's been around a long time is because it's true. A good test: for every scene, for every paragraph, for every sentence, ask, what does this do? If the answer is, it sounds nice, or I spent a long time on it, cut it. If the answer is, without this, the story falls apart, keep it. Compress. 2 scenes become 1. 3 sentences become 1 good one. A whole paragraph of backstory becomes a single detail that implies everything. The reader does not need to know everything. They need to know enough. Short fiction is the art of enough. A great example of this, and it's not technically short fiction, but the Notebook, the novel by, what's his name? The guy that writes, all the love stories. Nicholas Sparks. Thank you. In his book, 3 Weeks with My Brother, which is part memoir, part travelogue, he talks about when he was writing the Notebook that there was a scene that he had a book of poetry that his father had given him that he took to war with him, and he read it, and there was 3 pages of him talking about this journal and how he got shot once and he had the journal with him, and it was just all of this thing, and he kept cutting that down, and until he got it down to 1 sentence. It was 3 pages and he got it down to 1 sentence, and the sentence was, and I'm paraphrasing, but I think this kind of keeps the feeling of it, is the sentence that he wound up with was, my father gave me a book of poetry, and one day it took a bullet for me. He squeezed down all of this, that he had carried the journal, he had gotten shot. It kept the bullet from going into his heart because it had been in his breast pocket and all of that. And he cut down all of that to, my father gave me a book of poetry, one day it took a bullet for me. And that 1 sentence hits harder than yet cut, compress. Hemingway called this the iceberg theory. What shows up on the page is 1/8 of what's underneath. The reader feels the rest, even if they can't see it. Your job is to know everything. The reader's job is to feel it without being told. If you explain the whole iceberg, you kill it. Ask yourself this question in a lot of revision: can I say this with fewer words? Usually the answer is yes. And then sharpen. Make every opening line do double duty. Replace vague words with specific ones. He walked into the room becomes, he shouldered through the screen door. She was nervous becomes, she could not keep her hands still. The specific always beats the general. The concrete always beats the abstract. Ground the reader in sensory detail: touch, taste, smell, temperature, texture. The 5 senses are your tools. Use all of them. Read the story out loud. I mean it, out loud. Your mouth will find the rhythm problems your eyes will miss. If you stumble on a sentence, the reader will stumble there too. Fix it. And read the last paragraph first. Does it land? Does it carry the weight of everything that came before? If it does not, rewrite it until it does. Most short stories live or die in the last 3 sentences. Give yourself a cooling period. Finish the draft, put it away for a week, come back to it. You cannot revise what you just wrote. Your brain is still too close to it. Put it down. Work on something else. Come back with fresh eyes. The story is perfect. Problems could not. The story you thought was broken will have strengths that you forgot about. Distance is a revision tool. Use it. That's a tough one. All right, doing this in Dabble. A quick walkthrough of how Dabble supports this workflow. Because one of the work here is that we built this tool for exactly this kind of work. Story notes. This is where you capture the seed and your napkin outline before you write a single scene. Keep the raw material in one place. Keep it close. In your Dabble project is a good place where you can constantly refer to it. You can have as many notes as you want, organized however makes sense for you. I keep a seed file, a napkin outline, and a scratch file for any cut material that I might want later. Abby and I both refer to this as our boneyard. The plot grid. The plot grid is designed for novels, but it works beautifully for short stories too. Track the character's want, obstacle, and change. Map out 2 or 3 key scenes. Keeps you honest. It keeps the structure clear while you write. The way I tend to use the plot grid is kind of a roadmap, kind of a single column, idea. This idea flows into this idea. And then in my revision process, I go and fill out that plot grid to see if what I delivered meets the promise of what I thought in the beginning. And that's a helpful revision tool for me. Focus mode. The original thing that made me fall in love with Dabble in the very beginning was I had always looked for a distraction-free writing tool. And when I sat down to Dabble and I started typing and all of the interface just faded away to just me and my words, I knew I'd found my home. And when it's time to draft, turn on focus mode. It hides the sidebar. It hides everything, just you and the blinking cursor. One of the biggest enemies of writing is the interface that wants to help you. Turn it off. Just write. Goals. Set a word count goal. Short stories are perfect for building a daily writing habit. 1,000 words a day for 3 days, and you have a draft. That's powerful. That's momentum. Goals let you track the streak, which matters more than most writers admit. And then versions, when you start revising, create a duplicate copy of that. Save a copy of the first draft before you start cutting. Save another copy before the next big revision. That way you can always go back if you cut something you end up wanting. And the thing that I harp on all the time is I can see my original intention, because sometimes going back and reconnecting with that original feeling does more for me keeping the story on track than a lot of other things. To wrap up, let me bring this home. You don't need a year and 80,000 words to tell a story that matters. You need one character, one want, one obstacle, one change. And then you need the nerve to sit down and write it. Short stories are not training wheels for novels. Get that idea out of your head. They are their own art form. Some of the greatest fiction ever written is short fiction. They're also one of the best marketing tools you have when you use them with intention. And they're how you stay sharp between big projects. They keep your voice limber. They keep your instincts awake. Here's my challenge. Before this week is over, grab a napkin, literally or figuratively, answer the 4 questions: who, want, obstacle, and cost. Then sit down and write the story. Don't wait for the perfect idea. The perfect idea does not exist. The only perfect idea is the one you actually write. Write the messy first draft. Put it away for a few days. Come back, cut, compress, sharpen. Read it out loud. Ask yourself what changes. Make sure the change lands. And then do it again and again. Because the short story is not just a form, it's a practice. The writers who make it their practice get better faster than the writers who do not. Thanks for spending this hour with me. If you want to talk more about short stories or about writing and Dabble, come find me. I'm always at DabbleU, ready to answer questions, ready to talk. I'd love to hear what you're working on, and go write your short story.
Well, you know what? I have to tell you, I think the most impressive part is that you only talked about short stories for a single hour.
Yeah, how about that?
I know. I was like, for sure, Hank's going over on this one. It's his favorite topic. So,
I've been, and I took my own advice. I've been sharpening and compressing and polishing this for a week because I wanted it to come in exactly where. And if you're going to talk about landing, then you need to put that in practice, right?
Cut. You did don't you like the way as soon as you said it, I whip out my giant scissors?
I saw you out of the corner of my eye, and I was trying not to laugh when with your shears, your story shears.
My story shears.
Yeah.
So there are no questions about short stories. The only question I see that you did not answer while you were talking is Rachel wants to know, is there another cohort starting?
There's always another cohort starting, Rachel.
It's going to be publishing, though. That's what this one's going to be in the fall.
Spicy.
So stay tuned.
Yeah.
Otherwise.
Yeah. Well, thanks for joining us, everybody, and thanks for joining us here for 4 years of DabbleU. And I hope that you'll take what we've talked about today to heart and put it into practice. And I want to read all of your short stories. Yeah.
Hey, happy birthday, Hank.
Happy birthday, Abby.
Thank you.